The lines are open on 011-542-2186 as we mark Freedom Day. Where were you in 1994 and what does Freedom Day mean to you? 011-542-2186. Joining us in studio is Joe Mpisi, the South African Communist Party Gauteng Provincial Chairperson. Professor Barry Hanyani, political analyst and professor with the Northwest University, joins us on the line. And we have Mandlenkosi Pangwa, National Coordinator, 4th International Azanian Section. Good evening to you and thanks so much for joining us. I suppose that would be the operative question to ask. What does freedom mean to you, Joe, notwithstanding the fact that it came at a very high cost, but just your observations over the years of Freedom Day?
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. You reminded me of the day in question 23 years ago. I was an observer of the ANC in one voting station, and I must indicate to you that it has been a very exciting moment at that time. But I can't say that now, because in as much as we have achieved a lot over the last 23 years under the leadership of the African National Congress, we have challenges, the triple challenges, as you know: unemployment, inequality, and so on. We have those as part of the challenges that we have as a country. Our economy is not growing. Young people are unemployed. 72% of our youth are not employed, and that is a ticking time bomb for South Africa. However, we must also indicate that we have a stable democracy. In as much as we may have those ideological differences as people in this country, but our democracy is stable, our state is functional, so we have all what it takes to can better the situation going forward. However, I must indicate that it has been difficult and a smooth sailing at some point, 23 years of our freedom.
Yeah. Now, Mandlenkosi, I mean, some use it as a public holiday with not much gravitas or any significance, considering that blood was shed so that we could have opportunities be included in the very land that you are born in, to have dignity and basic human rights. So in your reflection of Freedom Day, has it somewhat become rhetoric, in the sense, the regurgitation of the same thing, or is there something different this year?
I think we need to also take out the fact that when you mention the achievements that have happened, the gains, the little gains that has come through bloodshed, but the question comes to question even the justice that comes with the freedom itself. Because, I mean, up until today, I can tell you that there's still people out there who still have an unanswered question coming from the era of apartheid. With not sounding the populist and rhetoric, you can ask yourself why, after apartheid was declared a crime against humanity, but there's no apartheid government official who has gone on trial to be trialed on those crimes against humanity. I mean, we are having today, for instance, we're having Fees Must Fall. As young as I was, as Comrade Joe Mpisi has mentioned, that every one of us waited with anticipation in 1994. And I mean, some of us who were students by then, it would be saying free education, and it would be free education, a better life for all. But when you actually checking, as much as you've alluded that there's already around 72% of unemployment of young people, you can check that even those employed young people who are facing exploitation, and they are, rather than them having to be excited for the Freedom Day, they would be excited for a day off that they would be outside of the working place where they would be facing horrors.
All right, just hold the thought. We have a caller, Patrick in Limpopo. Thanks so much for your patience. Good evening to you.
And the viewers, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I just want to comment.
Go ahead.
Yes, I don't think as a young people it's necessary for us to celebrate this day, since everything is not according to the way things should be. The level of unemployment is very high. Corruption is controlling our country. So what is the freedom then? So I don't think it's necessary, especially for the youth, because unemployment is high. The country is controlled by other families from outside our country. So I don't see any value of celebrating this day. Thank you very much.
All right, Patrick, I was going to ask you what, can be done, I suppose, to give a sense of hope, if nothing else. But let's go to Professor Barry Hanyane, professor at the University of the Northwest and a political analyst as well. Good evening to you, Professor Hanyane, and thanks for your time. The recognition that where we are essentially, especially as the black majority, was that black aspirations have not been met by the admission of the ruling party as well, and that the white privilege or white fears are still being protected. Is that for you a fair observation?
Cindy, good evening to you, good evening to your viewers and the panelists there. I think the opening remarks made by the two gentlemen in your studio are pretty much spot on in terms of reflecting where we are right now. Look, there is no doubt in everyone's mind that some measure of success has been achieved, especially in the political front. But at the same time, there's still lingering issues that still need to be attended to. Issues around job opportunities, issues around crime, issues around racism, issues around ensuring that the black majority en masse has access to the economy. And of course, social ills that have characterized our society are also dealt with vigorously. So yes, there is some measure of success, but equally important, there is so much that still needs to be done. And at the time when the very same governing party is at war with itself in terms of dealing with issues of governance and all other problems within and outside of its regime and mandate.
Yeah, please stay on the line, Professor Hanyane. We have a caller, Musa in Pietermaritzburg. Good evening to you and happy Freedom Day.
Good evening, ma'am. How do you do?
I'm very well, and how do you do?
Very well, ma'am. I must say, we are definitely in the age of despair. I think 23 years into our democracy, our ANC-led government has really let us down. I think as a black population, Africans in particular, really not much has been done in terms of ensuring that we are properly integrated into the mainstream of the economy. Suddenly, there is this rhetoric that is going around. People are talking about white monopoly capital. They are talking about radical economic transformation. But in essence, how is that going to filter down to a man on the ground? How is it going to benefit you and I, a person on the ground? It seems as though really we have reached a stage where really we speak without following policies.
Yeah, Musa, I hear you very well, but there are many scholars, if you take the trouble to read in terms of breaking down what radical economic transformation means, the changing the complexion of the economy in terms of control, management and ownership. But I hear you that it needs to benefit those that have been disenfranchised in this country. Thanks so much for your call. We have Luyanda calling us from Umtata. Good evening to you.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm also fine, thanks. I hear people are talking about this this Freedom Day. To me, I do not believe in this Freedom Day.
Why?
Because people like the guys that are in front of you, they've spoken claiming that the ANC-led government has done a lot for the people. Yet, the ANC at its time of its formation, they had 5 fundamental goals. And they only won one, which is the political will. Either in terms of everything else, they've done nothing for the people. They only won the political leadership.
All right, we'll get the Alliance to respond. Luyanda, thank you so much. Gentlemen, just from the callers, one saying it's an age of despair, Musa in Maritzburg, and Luyanda saying very little to celebrate, and I think the sentiment is echoed generally.
Yeah, I think perhaps just to go to the last caller, I think when we said a lot has happened, I think first we must appreciate that we did not get this freedom on a silver platter. A lot of people died for this freedom. And I would advise my brother here that he must actually celebrate this Freedom Day, because in the past, our forefathers never celebrated that. However, he must also appreciate the fact that during this democratic dispensation, there are challenges of corruption, challenges of unemployment, inequality. We need free education for young people. We haven't had that as yet. We know that we've been saying a lot in many platforms that if we want to say to our people, let's celebrate this Freedom Day, we must create jobs. We must make sure that our people have shelter. We must make sure that there are no people sleeping in the streets. The working class in general must be liberated from this scourge of poverty and unemployment. So I agree with him partly, but I don't want him to feel despaired about this celebration of this day. It's not a good day for him as well.
If I were to use this analogy of having a gold card of the World Bank, and you have foreign currency and an amount that you can't even pronounce in this gold card, except you do not have a PIN code. For me, this is what freedom as a black African represents, that you've got all these wonderful opportunities and the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, but you do not have the access code to all of these, by virtue of the fact that the skills levels are not adequate. Perhaps even you are predisposed to not having wealth, etc., or even collateral. So even if you wanted to access credit, it becomes a problem. Mandla Nkosi, so how then do we navigate this way forward to give people hope?
I think we need to first understand that the basis of the revolution, if we may call 1994 a peaceful revolution, the basis of the revolution is based on land, and it's based on the economy, which the economy can't be produced without the land. And I mean, the solution has been clear. Black people, and as the majority with their numbers, have been saying it. We want what was taken back from us, we want it back. And as black people are claiming that, which actually in sense would be used to actually improve the lives of the black people, because I mean, we can check all the revolutions that have happened historically. All of them were based on land, and all of them had bloodshed. And I mean, differing slightly that we never had the freedom at the silver platter. I mean, we had a freedom at the expense, but at the end of the day, the expense of the freedom came with a burden. Like, for instance, now we are paying the apartheid debt, of which the apartheid debt was actually acquired by the apartheid government to actually kill the black people and make sure that the black people stay as they are. And now when we are having that debt, and we are having a country where now we are actually sitting in amounts of minerals, amounts of opportunities, amounts of a wide talent that is sitting in the country, but we can't utilize that, based that the question of race is still not addressed. Because as I'm talking to you, there is many young people that are actually ready, innovative, and waiting to be unleashed, but the question of race still hinders them. And the question of like talking about white monopoly capital is not a joke. It's something that existed. It's something that actually continues to hinder the progress of the black people. And having such a freedom that, as you've clearly mentioned it, it's like having a car which has all these features, but you don't have a key to start it, of which it creates a problem. But the major solution to it would be actually having radical policies as the government. The government should actually break away with imperialism. Secondly, the government should make sure that the land gets back to the majority. I mean, 1913 was land expropriation without compensation against the majority of black people, of which if the government possesses the same policy, I don't see any unfairness of it, because the government would be returning what it has taken actually from the majority.
All right, let's get a view from Sabelo in Soweto. Good evening to you and happy Freedom Day.
Happy Freedom Day to you and the panel and the large. My point is that the majority of black South Africans are still working for the private sector, which is owned by the white capitalists, and they are still at the same place as they were before 1994. In terms of salaries, the treatment, the racism and everything, nothing has been done by this government of ANC. They don't even check what's happening and we're still there where we stand. No improvement whatsoever. We see guys, white guys coming in the private sector, in the company, 2 months, no experience, he's earning above you. You are 9 years in the company, you're still in the same place. Nothing happened.
But I think you must also be proactive, Sabila, and I hear your frustrations to utilize other laws and government structures like the Department of Labor, CCMA, and not just to waddle in a corner in your frustration. But thanks for your call. We have Max in Fourways. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm fine. Yeah, my view is that currently we don't have freedom. And for as long as black people do not own the land in South Africa, we cannot say we are celebrating any freedom. And Mandla Day, he knows very well we have been going up and down with him in Freedom Park, trying to fight for the people of Freedom Park to get the land. And even now, they are still struggling. Mandla knows very, very well. And if you go to Diepsloot, there are so many people in Diepsloot who are actually squatting in a small shack. You find more than 5 people living in one shack, and you find even old people doing their things in front of kids, and you call that a freedom. You go to anywhere, any squatted camp in Gauteng, there is no freedom. So we cannot lie to ourselves and say we are celebrating when there is nothing that we can show as black people that we can celebrate for. We are even the people who students, when they actually call for free education, they are being arrested, they are being taken up and down.
Point taken. I'm sorry, we're really out of time. I appreciate you calling in, saying that, you know, the freedom essentially has pacified black people, and the dream has been deferred of having a equal and egalitarian society. Professor Hanyane, just if you can look at one of the callers talking about radicalism and these buzzwords, as you know, a government position that could expedite the dreams and aspirations of the majority black, what would you say?
Cindy, solutions don't lie in policies. For the past 15 odd years, we've hailed this country to have produced one of the most spoken about constitutions in the world. But today you still don't have equal rights for all citizens in this country. So it will be a huge mistake to leave everything else to the solution of policies. I think that there's more that we need to do. Conscientization of our people is a very good start, followed, of course, by ensuring that the playing fields are created, and indeed we have some schemes and mechanisms to empower our people to be economically free themselves.
Professor Hanyane, yes, sir. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave it there with you. And Joe, as we wrap up, and Mandla as well, in what black people have established or started since 1994, once we've had the political freedom, as difficult as it may have been, but you know, there are pockets of excellence that we see black industrialists having achieved. Why is it that we couldn't replicate this en masse?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult, Cindy, to replicate that. You look at our economy is not growing. 2, our people are not skilled enough. 3, if we're talking about radical economic transformation, what do we mean by that? I think we need to unpack those. Again, also the question of land that your callers have expressed a view on, I agree with them. We need to definitely try by all means to make sure, particularly the ruling party, to make sure that these policies, which are very good policies, are translated into a policy that can benefit our people in this country, so that particularly the working class and the poor could benefit from it.
Yeah, but you're bound by the Constitution in terms of what you can or cannot do as a government, including protection of property rights, etc. So, Mantinkosi, really, realistically speaking, when will it be Uhuru?
I think it's simple. As I've said before, young people, the black South African, the majority, have got the capacity and the capabilities. But the red tape that has been put there by what we so-called now we put cosmetics and we call it white monopoly capital, but of which it's imperialist red tape that is there, that is hindering on the progress of the black majority. The question of land itself, it's a hindrance because any entrepreneur, any black people who want to collectively do something for themselves, to have self-reliance, because of the question of land, the property clause that you've spoken about, it even disallows the government to even develop land for its own people to stay. So it means the white monopoly capital that exists there, it's still a predicament and it's still a problem and a stumbling block between the success of the black majority and actually the government. Because, I mean, the government has got capacity. We're having a country that has mineral resources that are capable to cater for everything. But that white capital monopoly, what that exists there, still continues to be a red tape and still continues to be a stumbling block against the black majority.
All right, thanks so much, gentlemen, for your time. We're speaking to Joe Mpisi. He's the South African Communist Party Gauteng Provincial spokesperson or chairperson. Professor Barry Hanyane, political analyst and professor at the University of the Northwest. Mandla Nkosi Kapangwa is national coordinator, 4th International Azanian section. And you are most valued panelists. Thank you so much for calling in as well. We'll take a short break. We'll see you shortly.